Hi there, welcome back to my Devlog series. If you're new here, I've been developing a survival adventure, two-dimensional space sim game. Development's going well, but it's been a minute since I've last uploaded, so let me show you what's new. So my first priority in any of this is to get a Steam page up so I can start getting wish lists. But in order to do that, I need the game to look nice and completed. So, the best way for me to do that right now is to just start finishing one area at a time. And I decided to start with, where else, but the tutorial and starter area. To be honest, it's still got a long way to go, but here's what I've made so far. The first thing that I needed to do to spice this beginning area up was to add resources. So I came up with a few different ones, the first of which being this dark, veiny material called ferrite. Ferrite will act more like a basic requirement for a lot of different crafting recipes, kind of like iron a little bit. The only thing I might want to change about it is its graphics. I think the dark color kind of makes it hard to stand out against the space background, but everything's subject to change right now. The second resource, I got a little more creative and called this one irisite. It resembles a pink crystal embedded in the asteroids, and I definitely wanted this one to stand out so that the player actually is curious about it and goes out of their way to mine it. The uses for this one are going to be a little more niche. I kind of want this to be like a key resource used in some weapons maybe, or some equipment, but definitely not as multi-purpose as ferrite. I also went ahead and implemented a few new weapons. The first one being this heavy blaster. It's very slow and shoots out a large orb that'll do heavy damage and heavy knockback. I definitely think this weapon will have its own niche, but at the moment it feels a little bit underpowered, so I'll need to rework some of these, I think. The next weapon I added was the wave gun. This one fires slow-moving wave projectiles that are pretty wide, and can actually pierce multiple objects. Out of all the weapon ideas I've come up with so far, this one's probably my favorite. It's super useful that it can pierce behind certain things, so if there's some asteroids in the way, it doesn't really matter if you hit them. However, the idea is a little bit overpowered, so I had to nerf it a little bit and make sure it only pierces, I think, 5 objects before the projectile dies out. And I don't really know if this one qualifies as a weapon, but I added a drill that the player can attach to the front of their ship and use to mine asteroids or attack enemies. I think it's a fun little concept, and spaceships traditionally don't have physical weapons attached to them like this, so I think this will make it stand out a little bit more. Now, something I want this drill to accomplish is fill in the mining niche. I want it to break asteroids faster than, say, like your laser weapons would. In a similar way to, a pickaxe in Minecraft breaks stone blocks faster than a shovel or a sword does. I also tried to make a laser sword for the ship, but it's just a little bit bugged, so I'll revisit that concept later. So with all these new weapons and projectiles added into the game, I decided to take some of them and repurpose them into fun new enemies. The first of which were these little mining drones, where I just took the drill attachment and slapped them on the body of like an enemy that can move around, and boom, it's like a little guy. I made them have little charging attacks, but right now the charge attacks don't really sync up with the drills being active, so sometimes they'll just charge and it doesn't damage you at all. And something pretty funny about these guys that was actually completely unintentional is that you can destroy the drills on the front of them, and they'll still just keep attacking you like nothing's changed. I might want to change this to have them run away when their drill is broken, just to give them a little more personality, but I do think this is a funny little interaction. I also added in these stationary turrets that sort of act like sentries. Like, I imagine they're guarding the asteroid field here, and when you get too close to them, it activates them. When triggered, they will start shooting the wave projectile that I mentioned earlier at you, and they'll summon in a bunch of mining drones as well, to help them secure the area. They're unable to move or do anything else really, so I'm having them spawn in with the level generation, so that way it's more like they're a part of the environment and less so like an actual enemy. I think this makes it a little more interesting to traverse this area, because then it's kind of like you have to sneak around them. You don't want to get too close to them, or if you do trigger them, then you have to fight off a little encounter. Something you might have noticed in this section as well is that I added in a bunch of new background objects, like set pieces. Lots of large asteroids and bits of space junk that are a lot closer to the player to help contextualize movement a little bit better. Some pieces of feedback I've gotten on this game so far are that it's kind of hard to tell if you're moving or how fast you're moving because there's nothing really behind the player to contextualize the movement. And of course there are planets and gas clouds that I have parallax effects on, but they're way far back, and so that makes it really hard to tell. So I added in some of these new set pieces that not only help to make the backgrounds much more interesting, but also make it clear to the player how they're moving and how fast they're moving. Now, since I want this area to be more of a tutorial area, I want there to be a tutorial boss that the player has to beat before they're really set free and allowed to explore the galaxy. And I kind of liked the mining theme that I had going on with the enemies so far, so I decided to make this like a hauler mothership. Something that all of these little mining drones and the turrets are all responding to or acting under. So the way I want this fight to sort of pan out is the mothership will just be flying around the asteroid field doing whatever, and the player can encounter it, but not really damage it in any meaningful way because they don't have weapons or upgrades or anything. And so what that'll mean is the player will need to mine resources and craft a weapon that's actually powerful enough to pierce the armor of this mothership. And then finally, once they're able to do that, they'll come back and hit the mothership, and the mothership will begin attacking. Right now, I have a bunch of rotating turrets that shoot all sorts of projectiles, but I'll need to go back and refine and tweak this a little bit. And the way that you actually beat this thing is by blowing up all of the cargo holds on top of it. Each time a cargo hold is destroyed from the ship, it'll start spawning in electric sparks, which is another little new projectile I added in. And they'll hover around and hang out in the environment a little bit to cause more of an environmental hazard to the player. And this will sort of create a natural progression of difficulty. As the player continues to blow up the cargo holds of the ship, it'll spawn more and more sparking projectiles until there are none left. And then the player will finally be able to destroy the ship itself and get the drops. And then I haven't gotten this far yet, but I assume this ship would drop a resource that allows you to repair the beacon or somehow travel outside of the system. I think it fits pretty well, and I think it also serves its purpose as a little tutorial boss, teaching you how to progress through the game and to dodge, weave, and fight back against certain enemies. I think that this tutorial area is still missing like one or two things. Like I do want to have a helper NPC that'll sort of guide you down the right path. But other than that, I think that this little tutorial area is just about done. Next on my list is finalizing the alien and the evil AI areas so that I can have some images and some footage for a trailer to publish up on Steam. And after that, I think I'll dive into the nitty-gritty of the crafting system. Overall, though, development is going well. If there's something you want to see added to this game, like a cool enemy design or an interesting gameplay mechanic, then let me know in the comments. Seriously, I love going down to the comments and seeing all the creative, awesome ideas that you guys have come up with. And I always try and get around to replying to every single comment that's posted. And if you are curious to see where this project ends up, then please consider subscribing. Until next time.